Hey everyone, my name is Bo Sanders. I want to talk to you about male imagery for God. I've talked to you before about the importance of the words that we use both in our worship songs and in our prayers. And male pronouns for God and king imagery really factor into this. It's based on this ancient maxim called lex oriendi, lex credendi, which is the rule of faith is the rule of prayer. The rule of prayer is the rule of faith. And I've suggested that as the church has migrated through the last 2,000 years, that has gone from being the rule of prayer to then the sacrament became central. In the Protestant Reformation, the word became, the sermon became central. And now we live in a time where musical worship is the main way that people learn about God, that the words we sing really determine what we believe. And that's a powerful change that needs to be addressed. It's one of the reasons why I am so deliberate and intentional about the words that we use in prayer and in worship and singing. And so to try and balance out this masculine pronouns, masculine imagery for God with the feminine divine, and that picture that comes to us, it's a minority report, but in Scripture that there is really beautiful imagery around that. And I get that from books like She Who Is by Elizabeth Johnson, The Mystery of God in Feminist Theological Discourse, Sexism and God Talk by Rosemary Radford Ruther, and Metaphorical Theology, Models of God in Religious Language by Sally McFaig. So books like this have been really influential in me to understand the importance of balance and holistic approach to our imagery of the perfect parent. All language is analogical. It's an analogy, right? It's the best we can do. I call it a theopoetic, is one of the things that some of us have started talking about, is that we're doing the best we can to address this transcendent, eternal, divine imagery, and to really address that in a way that is, we know it's not exacting, it's not representative, but it's expressive. And so that's what we're trying to do. On Father's Day, a couple weeks ago, Naked Pastor, if you don't follow that site, you should, put out an interesting cartoon that I want to show you. I'll put it up on the screen, about somebody's prayer, and it says how a child shouldn't talk to his father. And so the prayer says, "Dear Father," this is a little kid standing next to his dad's recliner as his dad reads. It says, "Dear Father, I'm unworthy to be called your child. Let me be your servant to do your will. Use me as your instrument. Take my mind, take my heart, take my body, take my life. I am nothing, so consume me for your purpose and for your glory, even though I'm the worst person in the world." Now, if you're not from an environment where you hear those kind of prayers, that may seem farcical to you, or somewhat of a straw man or a caricature. It's not. I know people who pray like this. I know people who believe this with all their heart. And I feel so bad. When I started introducing feminine pronouns and feminine imagery for God, I got a little pushback, and I've taken it to heart. Some people have said, "Man, I had such a terrible relationship with my father," or maybe my father was absent, and this male imagery of God, to have a relationship with God the Father, means so much to me, and it's brought healing into my life. And so I do want to make space for that. But I have to admit, this thing has morphed. It has distorted. It has become so corrupted and toxic and destructive. I mean, it is emotionally and psychologically abusive. And so we really need a check on this. We need to come back and say, yes, Jesus talked about God using Abba, Daddy language and imagery. And so, yes, there is permission for that, but it can't be the totality. It can't be the only way that we talk about our relationship to God. Jesus said, "I relate to God as one relates to the perfect parent, the Father." And so what this thing has become is so hurtful and destructive. And it's not a joke. I mean, it really matters, because the rule of prayer is the rule of faith. So when people pray like this, it heaps a shame and an unhelpful and unhealthy hurtfulness within them, and the way that they view themselves in their relationship to the goodness, the transcendent, eternal, divine. And so I just wanted to address that and say that even if you need that therapeutic element, I mean, let's be honest, part of our religious faith and practice is therapeutic. It brings wholeness and health to us. It brings healing to those broken places. But we need to be careful about the imagery that we use, and so there's a real caution to be had here. I want to tell you a story about my father, in contrast to that cartoon. When I'm the oldest of 4 children, and when I was a little kid, my dad was not only a pastor, but he was a seminary student. And then to help sort of put food on the table, he would stock the shelves at a grocery store overnight. He was exhausted. And so we didn't get to see a ton of him during that time. And I'll always remember this one time that my dad came home. He was so exhausted, and all 4 of us kids just wanted to see him when we were so excited. And he just laid down on the living room floor and just crashed. And we wanted to be near him, so each of us 4 children laid our heads on him. And because I was the oldest son, I kind of got the prime place, and I was right under his left arm. And I was laying there, and somebody had their head on each side of his belly and on his other armpit too. And he fell asleep, and I could hear his heartbeat, and just that consistent heartbeat. And it ministered to me this sense of love and acceptance, that I love you, and I knew he was working hard for us. It's that kind of imagery that has given me a confidence that both in my relationship with humans and with my relationship to the eternal, divine, transcendent God, it's given me a confidence that I'm accepted, and that I'm approved, and that I'm adored, and that I've been adopted into God's family, that I am a child of God, as we all are. That's the beautiful kind of imagery that we can use in these metaphors, because it brings us closer to the heart of God. But I just want to caution against this obsession that has emerged with only talking about God in masculine language, and how it has warped and distorted how we approach and how we practice faith, and the implications of that on our own spirituality and life and health and mental health. So I just wanted to throw that out there and say, I get it. If you like masculine imagery for God, if that does something for you, if it's performative in some way, if it has utility, I understand that, and I want to make room for that. Obviously, the patriarchy needs to be crushed, and so I want to be an ally to the feminists in my life. I can't be a feminist myself because I'm a man, but I want to be a good ally, and part of that is holding in check, bringing a check and balance to this unhealthy and lopsided thing that has emerged in our culture and is defended viciously and aggressively. So I just wanted to provide some resources and begin a conversation to say that in our prayers and in our worship, that we need to bring balance and wholeness and health to our imagery of God, because it functions. Language, this is Elizabeth Johnson, language functions. And so we need to both account for that and attend to it well. Bless you today. I hope that this has been encouraging or challenging to you, and I would love to hear your feedback.